Have you ever wished, really wished, that dragons were real? Or maybe mermaids and unicorns? Or perhaps you're already content with all the extraordinary animals that actually exist on our planet. Maybe you're a true believer and have even made a pilgrimage to Loch Ness, or to your own local version of some mysterious monster's lair. Well, we might be about to blow your mind, but don't worry, we'll leave the unicorns intact. From fictional monsters that turned into real-life mysteries to classic legendary beasts, here are 20 mythical creatures that actually existed. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Now, let's get started. Number 1. The unicorn. You've probably heard of the unicorn and wondered, did it really exist? The answer might be disappointing, but I'll share some curiosities that you might not know. Unicorns are often depicted in European art and literature as horse or goat-like creatures with a long and elegant single horn on top of their heads. However, the unicorn figure, as we know it today, is not the only representation of animals with a single horn. During the Bronze Age, artifacts from various cultures depicted horned bovines long before the unicorn became a mythical icon. Additionally, ancient Greeks also described unicorn-like creatures, further influencing the popular perception of these fantastic figures. The myth of their magical powers persisted for centuries. In the Middle Ages, narwhal teeth, which resemble horns, were sold as real unicorn horns, believed to possess powerful healing properties. However, unless you count the chubby unicorn, like the rhinoceros, which does have a horn, there's no scientific evidence that the unicorn was a real creature. Still, the unicorn myth continues to fascinate, remaining a symbol of purity, beauty, and magic to this day. Number 2. The Amugi, dragon of Korean mythology. The Amugi, also known as emoji, holds a special place in Korean mythology, where it symbolizes power and prosperity. Unlike dragons from European mythology, which are associated with fire and destruction, the Amugi is connected to water and clouds, considered messengers of rain and creatures of the waters. It is said that these serpentine dragons lived in lakes, rivers, and oceans, bringing with them the hope of good harvests. Unlike full-fledged dragons that dominate the skies, Amugi are seen as dragons in training. They are often described as aspiring beings, with the dream of becoming complete dragons after undergoing a long journey. One legend tells that to become true dragons, Amugi must survive for 1,000 years. However, another story claims that the Amugi were cursed and condemned to live without horns, which prevents them from reaching their full potential as dragons. This desire for transformation is a powerful metaphor in Korean culture, reflecting themes of perseverance and hope. Although the idea of a hornless dragon may seem like a challenge, it also represents the journey of growth and evolution. However, becoming a true dragon is a long and arduous path, full of challenges that test the endurance and character of any being aspiring to this mythical status. Number 3. Mermaid. Although we are obsessed with all kinds of mythical figures, such as mermaids on lunchboxes or hats, these creatures remain firmly rooted in the realm of legend and myth, with no concrete evidence of their existence in the real world. Mermaids have been central characters in the stories of seafaring cultures since ancient times, often associated with shipwrecks and the seduction of unsuspecting sailors. They live in the depths of our imagination, but there has never been proof that they are anything more than inventions of exaggerated tales and reports. Throughout history, many other half-human, half-animal, and even magical figures have been portrayed. But mermaids, with their combination of beauty and danger, continue to stand out. One of the most intriguing mysteries is why these creatures have remained so firmly embedded in the collective consciousness of people, even without evidence of their existence. An interesting theory is that the vast, mysterious, and unexplored depths of the ocean fuel this fascination, creating the perfect space for imagination to flourish and for creatures like mermaids to blossom. In many accounts, they are described as stunningly beautiful, but with a dark side, capable of luring sailors to the depths of the sea with their hypnotic voices. While mermaids are part of our folklore and popular culture, their real existence remains purely speculative. In any case, they continue to be powerful symbols of mystery, beauty, and danger, even if they have never truly been spotted. Number 4. The frilled lizard. Lizards are incredible creatures. They come in a surprising variety of shapes, sizes, colors, and behaviors, and few are as peculiar as the famous frilled lizard. This creature, despite its somewhat eccentric appearance, is 100% real and not at all mythical. The name comes from the impressive skin flap it carries around its neck, resembling a collar or fringe. Normally, this structure is folded against the body, but when the animal feels threatened, the transformation is instant. In a dramatic move, the lizard rises on its hind legs, opens its mouth, and flares its frill into a circular shape, displaying vivid colors and striking patterns. Along with an aggressive hiss and a defiant posture, the result is a performance that can easily scare off predators and unsuspecting observers. It's a defense mechanism as theatrical as it is effective, a true intimidation show. This behavior not only serves to ward off threats, but also reminds us why reptiles are so fascinating. The frill isn't just an evolutionary ornament, it shows how nature is creative in developing survival mechanisms. And let's be honest, if one of these lizards came running toward us with that inflated frill and a fierce look, most of us would likely run for cover without a second thought. And yes, it's impossible not to think of Jurassic Park when we see this behavior in action. That famous scene with the Dilophosaurus spitting venom and extending its frill was directly inspired by this little nature artist, although the venom part was purely cinematic license. Number 5. The Loch Ness Monster. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster, or Nessie as it's affectionately called, has fascinated the world for decades. It all began with a few sporadic reports and later gained traction with photographs taken in the 1930s, images that were eventually debunked as hoaxes. Still, those supposed pieces of evidence fueled the collective imagination and inspired monster hunters from around the globe to explore the deep, dark waters of Loch Ness in Scotland in search of the legendary creature. Over time, many theories have emerged to explain what Nessie might be. Some believe it could be a plesiosaur, a type of marine dinosaur that somehow escaped extinction. Others suggest it might be an extraordinarily large eel, a lost Greenland shark, or even an undiscovered species not yet recognized by science. Nessie has become a symbol of the search for the unknown, an icon among the mysteries of the natural world. But, as with every great legend, there are skeptics. And in 2019, a team of scientists from New Zealand decided to investigate the case using modern techniques. They collected water samples from the lake to extract what's known as environmental DNA. The goal was to analyze the genetic material left behind by all the creatures living in the lake. The result? No trace of prehistoric reptiles, giant sharks, or monstrous catfish. However, the study did reveal a significant amount of eel DNA. That's right, lots of eels. And while scientists concluded that most were likely of average size, they also said they couldn't entirely rule out the existence of unusually large eels. This leaves room for one intriguing possibility. What if Nessie is actually a colossal, rare, and elusive eel? Even in the face of science, the mystery of Nessie endures. Because deep down, we all like to believe that there's still something hidden in the world, something that defies logic and allows us to dream of the impossible. Number 6. The camelopard. And here we are once again with the Europeans of antiquity and the Middle Ages, always ready to transform the unknown into something magical, mystical, or just plain absurd. This time, the target of confusion is an animal we know well today, but that was once considered so strange it had to be a legendary creature. We're talking about the giraffe. When early European travelers first encountered a giraffe in African lands, they were completely baffled. That creature with its incredibly long neck, slender legs, graceful movements, and spotted coat looked like a zoological jigsaw puzzle. And since these explorers had no problem inventing strange names, the term camelopard, or sometimes camelopard, was born. The logic behind the name was simple and hilarious. They thought the giraffe moved like a camel, with its peculiar gait and elongated body, but looked like a leopard because of its spots. Camel plus leopard equals camelopard. Makes perfect sense, right? Well, not really, but for the mindset of the time, it actually did. Science was still in its early stages, and when faced with the unknown, imagination often filled in the gaps of knowledge. What's even more curious is that, for quite some time, the giraffe was genuinely classified as a mythical creature in medieval bestiaries, right alongside dragons and griffins. It appeared in illustrations and travel accounts as a strange and rare being, something straight out of fantastic tales. Today, of course, we know it's not only real, but also one of the most fascinating and graceful creatures in the animal kingdom. But the story of the camelopard teaches us something important. When we come across something new and unfamiliar, our first instinct is often to compare it to what we already know. And sometimes that comparison leads to strange names, hasty conclusions, and even mythological creatures that, in the end, were very much alive and real all along. Number 7. The Blemmy. During medieval Europe, there was a strange mix of curiosity and confusion, to be quite honest. Even with the technological limitations of the time, there were active trade routes between Europe, North Africa, and parts of Asia. Europeans knew more about the world than we often give them credit for, but at the same time, they were profoundly ignorant about many cultures and life forms different from their own. And it's precisely in that space between imagination and ignorance that figures like the Blemmy emerged. The Blemmy, or Blimey, depending on who's telling the story, was portrayed as a humanoid creature supposedly living deep within the African continent. Its most striking peculiarity? It had no head. That's right, a headless humanoid creature whose eyes, mouth, and nose were said to be located on its chest. As bizarre as that sounds today, this kind of description was taken seriously by many at the time, repeated in chronicles, maps, and travel accounts. Now, how much of that was pure ignorance, and how much was just travelers making up wild stories to impress others? Probably a bit of both. After all, in the absence of photographs or quick Google searches, the most absurd tales had plenty of room to grow and spread. And let's be honest, if you were a merchant or adventurer trying to capture the attention of a medieval European audience, inventing an entire race of headless people would definitely spice up your narrative. Today, of course, we know there were no groups of people wandering around with eyes in their chests, but the myth of the Blemmy reveals something deeper: how cultures of the time interpreted otherness, that is, the unknown, the foreign, the different. Rather than trying to understand African peoples with genuine curiosity or respect, many Europeans simply turned them into monstrous caricatures, reinforcing prejudices based on rumors. Still, the Blemmy survives to this day as part of medieval folklore, appearing in ancient maps and even in literary works. It's a vivid reminder of how ignorance and imagination can blend together to create creatures that never existed, but that still haunt historical records as if they did. Number 8. Dowaku. And here we are in Ireland, where this time we're paying a visit to a particularly frightening and unpleasant mythological creature. We're talking about a water-dwelling entity that has been giving people chills since ancient times. The name Dowaku basically translates to water dog, or sometimes abyssal hound, which already evokes a deeply unsettling feeling. Just the name alone suggests we're not dealing with a friendly creature. The general idea resembles a sinister fusion between a hellhound and a deep-sea monster, which naturally causes a fair bit of anxiety in anyone daring enough to imagine such a thing. Many describe the creature as a kind of cross between a giant otter and a dog, with glowing eyes and sharp claws. It might not sound too scary at first, but visual representations are honestly quite bizarre. Wide mouths, pointed fangs, and a shadowy, menacing presence. In some versions, the Dowaku is also referred to as the Irish crocodile, although it shares little in common with tropical reptiles aside from its ferocity. And remember how we talked earlier about the many versions of lake monsters around the world? Well, this is basically Ireland's take on the whole thing, except, unlike the Loch Ness monster, which is tied to a single lake, the Dowaku is said to be found in various bodies of water, lakes, rivers, and even seas across Ireland. So instead of being a localized legend, it's practically a nationwide aquatic threat. What really sets the Dowaku apart from other mythical creatures is its aggressive behavior. Unlike beings that limit themselves to fleeting appearances or mysterious floating in the water, this cryptid is known for its taste for human flesh. It's said to lurk beneath the surface, waiting for an unsuspecting victim, then strikes with brutality. Despite all this, there has never been a confirmed sighting of the creature. No fisherman has ever hauled one out of the water, and there's no reliable physical evidence. Yet, belief in the Dowaku's existence persists, fueled by tales passed down through generations. It's kind of strange, isn't it? A creature supposedly living in so many different places, yet never captured, alive or dead. And still, its legend remains strong, as if it's lurking, just waiting to show itself again. Number 9. Kongamato. Here we have another mysterious creature. This time, it's one that is frequently sighted in the swamp areas of northern Zambia and parts of Zimbabwe. The Kongamato has been described as a kind of flying lizard by those who claim to have seen it. It has been part of the local people's mythology, but sightings didn't start being recorded more frequently until the 1950s, when these creatures, resembling dinosaurs, were observed in the Zambezi Basin, a region rich in fauna and biodiversity. Although the reports were often described as testimonies of something ancient, surviving from prehistoric times, the reality began to be questioned. many observers started to suggest that the sightings were nothing more than misunderstandings. What happened, however, is that many other people said that, instead of residual monsters in a Jurassic Park style or some unknown but surviving species of large flying reptiles, they were probably just a bunch of flamingos. This, of course, led to a series of local jokes about how people can mistake nature when trying to identify the unusual. And it's always like that, isn't it? You think you saw a dinosaur running through your backyard, and in the end, you discover it was just your neighbor's chicken or a wild duck with a head looking like a dragon. Sometimes our imagination goes beyond reality. However, the reports persist, and the mystery of the conga motto continues to attract the interest of enthusiasts of enigmatic creatures, with some still believing that a prehistoric life form is truly lurking in the shadows of the African jungle. Number 10. The Hellhound. The Hellhound is a mythological creature resembling a dog, said to be a guardian or servant of hell, the devil, or any underworld mythology you follow. There are various versions of the Hellhound, from Cerberus in Greek mythology, to the multi-headed fierce dog that guards the gates of the underworld, to the black dogs of English mythology. These dogs are often described as oversized, with a monstrous appearance, a terrifying presence, and the power to instill an instinctive fear in anyone who faces them. These oversized dogs with eyes that glow unnaturally and the habit of walking with the devil, appearing in various stories around the English-speaking world, are much more than mere legends. They are tied to deep symbolism about death and the transition to the afterlife. But wherever you are, there's probably no shortage of stories about some kind of hellish dog. They can be portrayed as solitary creatures or part of a demonic entourage, depending on the legend. Dogs with flaming eyes appear in folktales across Latin America, Scandinavia, and the mythology of these creatures is perpetuated through their persistent use in popular culture, from TV shows and movies to books and video games. In popular culture, these hellhounds play crucial roles in stories involving good versus evil, serving as warnings or symbols that the devil is near. They are also frequently portrayed as beings that are not easily defeated, almost invulnerable, further increasing their allure and terror. Hellhounds tend to appear regularly whenever there is some kind of supernatural element or the devil appears in the story. If you think about it, these dogs serve as representations of the human fear of the unknown, death, and forces beyond our comprehension. That's all for you, Damien. Number 11. Moby Dick. Yes, Moby Dick was a fictional story, but apparently there was some investigation by historians who discovered that Herman Melville, the author of Moby Dick, if you've read the book, was greatly inspired by real-life accounts of 19th century whalers and their encounters with killer whales. These majestic yet relentless creatures, which somehow seem to have a consciousness of their own, were associated with several incidents of ship attacks. These accounts directly influenced Melville's writing, making his work even more intriguing. Well, if you were being relentlessly hunted, you might get a little annoyed with all that too. So there are several stories of these whales causing problems for sailors on whaling ships. One of the most famous is the story of the whaling ship Essex, which was attacked by a giant sperm whale and sank in November 1820. The attack was brutal, and 20 crew members managed to escape in smaller boats, but only 5 made it to land after being stranded for 89 more days. The survival was a test of human endurance, and the accounts of the experience were immortalized as one of the greatest disasters in whaling history. Then, there are more stories of deadly whales, and one that seems to have particularly touched Melville's heart was actually a gigantic albino whale with a penchant for violence, roaming the Pacific Ocean. Many of the stories described encounters where these whales, in an act of revenge or defense, mercilessly attacked ships, destroying them with their massive tails and bodies. The stories of whales defending themselves from hunters and in some cases becoming forces of nature in their fury fascinated Melville and inspired him to create a figure as striking as Moby Dick. So there were several stories and different whales that, after defending themselves from their potential killers, gained a reputation among whalers. Sailors considered them almost as living legends, and the image of these gigantic whales with their impassive stares and powerful tails was feared in every port. Melville drew inspiration from many of these stories, and it seems that, indeed, there was a great white whale that tormented sailors in the 19th century, ultimately becoming the foundation for his famous story. In fact, the reality behind Moby Dick is more mysterious and haunting than any fiction. Number 12. The Beast of Bray Road. The Beast of Bray Road is known by several aliases, such as the Wisconsin werewolf, the Bray Road Beast, but most commonly as the Beast of Bray Road. It is an apparent humanoid creature with wolf-like features, first spotted, guess where? On Bray Road, located in the rural community of Elkhorn in Walworth County, Wisconsin. This strange creature, which seems to emerge from the darkness of the forests and fields of the area, began to gain notoriety as reports of sightings increased. Most sightings occurred in the 1980s and 1990s, when people didn't spend their entire lives in a trance in front of a screen and still occasionally left their homes. So, there seem to be many sightings of the supposed beast during that time. Perhaps today there are countless mysterious creatures roaming out there, but we're all so glued to our phones that we don't even notice. However, during that period, attention was focused on what happened in small towns and isolated roads, where the Beast of Bray Road was most commonly sighted, making residents wonder if they were truly dealing with something supernatural or just an urban legend. After these initial sightings, a local newspaper assigned a reporter named Linda Godfrey to investigate. Initially skeptical, she was willing to speak with witnesses who had seen the creature, and as she delved deeper into the investigation, she was soon convinced. Linda became a strong advocate for the wolf theory, starting to gather evidence and reports on the phenomenon, which quickly took on more mysterious and intriguing contours. She published several articles on the subject, which sparked interest from many people, who now looked at Bray Road with new eyes. The Beast of Bray Road was absorbed into Wisconsin folklore and became the subject of many books, documentaries, and even a horror film in 2005. The myth was fueled and kept alive by the local culture, and the figure of the wolf-like creature continued to haunt the popular imagination. The story of the Beast of Bray Road is a great example of how collective fear and curiosity can transform a simple series of sightings into a legend that endures for generations. Number 13. Charybdis. For our next trick, we bring you Charybdis, a mythical creature from ancient Greece, whose name I probably mispronounced. But who cares, right? Charybdis was a massive sea monster believed to create huge whirlpools capable of capsizing ships and dragging their crews beneath the waves. This creature is one of the icons of Greek mythology, a true threat in the waters of the ancient Mediterranean world. And like many ancient legends, it continues to fascinate people to this day. These monsters appear in many stories featuring Greek heroes, and Charybdis, along with her neighbor Scylla, figures prominently in several epic adventures. It was believed that this creature resided in the Strait of Messina, a place feared by sailors living under a colossal rock. Her neighbor Scylla, another terrible sea monster, similarly caused destruction in the waters. Together, Charybdis and Scylla formed a duo feared by navigators, who were often forced to make difficult choices to avoid death at the hands of these creatures. Apparently, the duo worked together to bring about destruction at sea, leaving no chance for the unwary. It is said that Charybdis would swallow large amounts of water while waiting for passing ships. When the right moment arrived, she would expel all that water forcefully, creating a fierce whirlpool that would pull vessels beneath the surface. This phenomenon, capable of swallowing even the largest ships, was the monster's main form of attack. When depicted in images, she is often shown as a giant sea serpent with an enormous thirst, causing the tides to change throughout the day as she drank and expelled the water again. Her cycle of swallowing and expelling water represented a constant danger for sailors who ventured into those treacherous waters. The legend of Charybdis, with its devastating power, remains one of the most impressive stories in Greek mythology and continues to be a symbol of the immeasurable strength of the seas. Number 14. The Montauk Monster. In 2008, a horrible, bloodless, swollen body appeared on the beaches of Montauk, Long Island, New York, and everyone went into a panic. Well, you'd probably panic too, right? Imagine the scene. A strange creature with a monstrous appearance, exuding a foul smell, with no idea of what it exactly was. Anyway, this creature, which soon became known as the Montauk Monster, was seen on the beach, all dead and strange, and then suddenly disappeared, and no one seemed to know why. This is the perfect way to ensure that a mystery remains mysterious, as its disappearance only fueled more speculation and conspiracy theories. Many people gave their ideas, usually pretty silly, as people tend to do when faced with the unknown. But most of the theories pointed to a more fantastic explanation. The legend of the Montauk Monster was born from speculation that it was a strange mutant creature, accidentally created in a lab located at the nearby Plum Island Animal Disease Research Center. Others suggested that the monster could be the result of a secret military experiment or even a genetically engineered creation. Naturally, as happens in many cases of unsolved mysteries, there were people saying the creature was alien, which only added more mystery to the case. Over time, other versions of the monster's origin emerged, spreading like wildfire. Some claimed the creature was a hybrid of a land animal and an unknown sea creature. The fact that no one could explain what really happened to the creature's body after its disappearance only deepened the enigma. Overall, the story of the Montauk Monster remains one of those urban legends that stays alive through the generations, fueled by human curiosity and the desire to understand the inexplicable. Number 15. Ogopogo. Next up, we have another mysterious monster that inhabits a lake. You know, every place wants to have its own Loch Ness monster. Who wouldn't want that tourism cash, right? But this time, we're in British Columbia, Canada, home to the so-called Ogopogo, which is quite an interesting name for a mysterious beast, don't you think? The legend of this monster has been passed down through generations, and it remains a cultural icon in the region, attracting curious people from all over the world. It's said that this monster dwells in the depths of Okanagan Lake near Kelowna, Canada. It's described as surprise, surprise, a giant serpentine creature that can be seen emerging from the dark waters of the lake in moments of high tension. Descriptions of the Ogopogo vary widely, which only adds to the mystery. Some people claim it has black or green skin, while others say it has a horse-like head, or sometimes a snake's, and occasionally even a sheep's. With so many variations, it's hard not to imagine that this monster is a truly chameleon-like creature, capable of transforming before the eyes of witnesses. Naturally, there's a huge tourism trade in the city, even with a reward of $1 million offered in the 1980s for definitive proof of the lake monster's existence. This only helped spread the legend further and increase the number of tourists visiting Okanagan Lake in search of the Ogopogo. It was featured on the famous show Unsolved Mysteries, and even Greenpeace got involved to protect the creature, claiming it was a rare and endangered species. Although science has never proven its existence, the tourism and stories surrounding it remain alive. The absurdity truly reached its peak back then, but tourism continues to this day, with souvenir shops, boat tours, and fantastic stories passed from mouth to mouth. The Ogopogo is spotted enough to keep the legends alive, but does it really exist? Or is it all just a big marketing ploy to keep the tourist flow in Kelowna going? The question still lingers as the legend remains strong and alive. Number 16. The Bear Lake Monster. Bear Lake is a body of water in the United States, located on the border between Utah and Idaho. It's one of many places around the world with a local myth about a mysterious or terrifying creature that supposedly lives in its depths. The mystery of the Bear Lake Monster continues to captivate people to this day, feeding popular imagination and generating new theories each year. No matter how many reports are debunked, the myth persists, creating an aura of curiosity and fear around the lake. This monster was first reportedly sighted in the 19th century by a man named Joseph C. Rich, a Mormon settler who wrote a series of articles about it, but later backtracked and said it was all false. Since then, the Bear Lake Monster myth has become a tourist attraction, with many people traveling to the location in hopes of seeing the creature and experiencing the mystery. However, the monster hasn't been sighted since 2002, which only fuels more mystery and speculation. Various sightings of the Bear Lake Monster suggest that the creature has a serpentine shape, but with legs. It has been described as being 9 meters long, light-colored, and moving very fast, something that would leave any witness speechless. Some older reports mention an even larger creature, 15 meters in length, and say the monster has spines along its back, adding an extra touch of strangeness to the legend. In some cases, there were even reports of a second monster in the lake, increasing the unease among locals and visitors. Strangely, although the creator of the Bear Lake Monster story admitted that it was all a hoax and that he invented the story, others continue to claim that the monster is real and that they have seen it. This generates a mix of skepticism and fascination, and the question remains: how can something that was debunked by its own creator continue to be treated as a reality? It's curious how this happens, and the mystery will likely only grow with time, attracting more people to explore the enigmatic waters of this lake. Votis dit-vous? Number 17. Kraken. The thing with mythical creatures is that they can be as large, frightening, and shark-destroying as the storyteller's imagination allows. And in the case of the Kraken legend, we can safely assume that a sea monster capable of swallowing entire ships would probably handle a pesky shark with a simple tentacle swipe. The idea of a creature of this magnitude, capable of instilling terror even in the most seasoned sailors, certainly feeds the fear of the unknown in the depths of the ocean. Yes, an imaginary creature that, according to legend, could be as large as a ship or even a kilometer long, would surely defeat even the largest shark swimming the seas today. The kraken is often described as a colossal beast with tentacles so large they could envelop an entire ship, dragging it into the depths of the sea. With unimaginable strength, it would destroy any sea predator daring to cross its path. A shark, no matter how fierce, wouldn't stand a chance against a monster of such scale. The Nordic mythical creature became famous in maritime legends for crushing ships with its enormous tentacles, or pulling them completely to the bottom of the ocean, creating giant waves and dragging sailors to their doom. So, a little shark? Well, forget about it. The kraken wouldn't even notice, even if the shark managed a few bites. This creature has the ability to devastate with a single movement, making it one of the scariest legends of maritime folklore, a true incarnation of chaos hiding in the deep waters. Number 18. Chupacabra. It was about time we switched things up and brought something weird, right? That's why you love us here at Fancy Banana. After all, always expect the unexpected. The next creature we're introducing to your lucky eyes is the Chupacabra. Yes, this mythical creature from Latin American folklore, which, although not real, certainly grabs attention with its bizarre stories. Although there's no concrete evidence of its existence, it remains a mysterious figure with countless people swearing they've seen it. The name Chupacabra comes from two Spanish terms, chupar, which means to suck, and cabra, which means goat. There you have it, the dreaded goat-sucker terrorizing folk legends. But how is it portrayed in images and stories? The Chupacabra is often depicted as a sort of canine creature with a vampiric appearance, and it's almost always described as a hairless being, which, to me, makes the idea even more terrifying. The lack of hair, combined with its mysterious nature, makes it infinitely more unsettling than other strange creatures, like those hairless cats. You know, those things that always seem to be plotting something evil. In many areas where mysterious attacks on farm animals occur, the Chupacabra is often blamed. Many reports involve animals such as chickens, goats, and even sheep being found dead in suspicious ways, with strange wounds on their bodies. The theory is that the Chupacabra feeds on the blood of these creatures, much like a vampire, which only adds to the aura of mystery surrounding it. But does it really exist? Did any of these creatures really turn out to be Chupacabras, or is it all just exaggerated stories? Number 19. Griffin, half lion, half eagle. The griffin is a mythical creature that appears, in one form or another, in many different cultures around the world. These invented beings are often associated with royalty in ancient folklore, and over the centuries, they have come to be described as protectors of kings' and queens' treasures. They are especially skilled at guarding gold, jewels, and other precious items of the nobility. The figure of the griffin symbolized strength, courage, and protection, qualities essential to the guardians of ancient wealth. Although the griffin is a widely recognized creature, in reality there is no evidence to suggest that it was anything other than a mythological invention. There are no historical records, fossils, or griffin bones being unearthed in archaeological digs. Therefore, there is absolutely no reason to believe they ever existed. And yes, even with all the stories and depictions of griffins, it is rather unlikely that any civilization ever encountered anything resembling one of these beings. Despite being entirely fictional creatures, griffins appear in various works of art and inscriptions from the ancient world, reflecting the fascination these entities provoked throughout history. The creature with the body, hind legs and tail of a lion, and the head and wings of an eagle can be seen in paintings and sculptures dating back to ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and various parts of the Middle East, where the griffin is known as Shirdal. Throughout history, this mythological being has come to be regarded as a symbol of protection and divine power. Later, during the Middle Ages, the griffin gained a new interpretation in Christian mythology, being associated with the duality between spirit and flesh, symbolizing the meeting of the celestial and the earthly worlds. Today, the griffin frequently appears in heraldry, particularly in British coats of arms, where it is depicted as a symbol of strength, courage, and vigilance. In British heraldry, however, the griffin is always shown with its wings spread, which raises an interesting question. Why is it that its wings are never drawn closed? If you have a theory about this, share it with the group in the comments section below. Agreed? Number 20. Dire wolves. Apparently, this is one of the favorite creatures among Game of Thrones fans, and also a famous ancient predator that roamed the earth during the Ice Ages. Dire wolves are believed to have existed until the end of the last Ice Age, living alongside iconic creatures like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, and disappearing with them in a major extinction event. Initially, it was thought that these wolves were merely distant relatives of modern gray wolves. However, more recent studies using ancient DNA revealed that they weren't just a wolf variant, but an entirely separate evolutionary entity. Scientifically speaking, dire wolves are not directly related to wolves, coyotes, or dogs. They belong to a unique genetic branch within the canine family, which makes them even more fascinating from a biological standpoint. These impressive predators inhabited much of what we now know as North America, with fossil records dating from approximately 250,000 to 13,000 years ago. They were about 20% larger than today's gray wolves, with stronger jaws and more robust skulls, allowing them to take down large and tough prey. It's believed they lived in organized packs, behaving similarly to modern wolves, but with a preference for big game such as bison, prehistoric horses, and even young mammoths. The most significant discoveries about this extinct species came from the famous La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. These natural asphalt deposits fossilized thousands of bones over millennia, preserving not only dire wolf skeletons, but also those of their prey in remarkable detail. These findings offer a valuable glimpse into the megafauna that once dominated the continent before humans arrived. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Don't forget to check out other interesting content appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time.